Hello, and welcome to week 6 of the employment law diploma. So in terms of where we're at, obviously the first couple of weeks we covered the developments of employment law, and almost starting to get an understanding about the role of Parliament and the role of the courts, particularly when we looked at the activity of 1898, 1913. We sort of took a bit of a detour on week 4, which was trying to just understand in terms of the more sort of modern sense who is involved in the creation of employment law. And that was a good way in to then looking at the various institutions. And obviously on week 5 we particularly talked about the role of government has in changing laws, and obviously that aspect of the supremacy of Parliament, which I'm sure for some of you you're now a lot more familiar, but given all the Brexit issue. Last night we did week 6 on employment tribunals, and if I just open up, so for this week there are two aspects. There's the activity, which we did in class, and there's the class forum. Let me take you through the activity. So the activity is about getting us to understand some of the initial aspects of an employment tribunal. We're going to come back to this anyway in term 2, because obviously we're going to go for a visit. But also it is about starting to become familiar with some of the jargon. And obviously we had last night Val Stansfield as a speaker that we then used as part of the as the resource in terms of some of the issues that she raised. But in terms of resources, there's a video by a barrister called Dave Renton you might want to watch, although it's 2014. There's also a blank copy of an ET1 form. There's a parliamentary briefing on employment tribunals. There's a labour research chapter on employment tribunals as well. There's the jurisdiction list as well on employment tribunals. Employment tribunal decisions are now available online, so you'll be able to see that. And you've got a link as well to the forum. But anyway, let me take you through the activity. So bearing in mind some of the resources that I've just explained, the activity itself is covering several aspects. So task 1 is about what are the types of issues that can be taken to an employment tribunal. So you need to have a look at the jurisdictions list for that. That's the jargon. Explaining what is an ET1 form, and then also looking at, and for that you're going to need the LRD chapter. You then have the time limits, and given that we as reps would be involved from the beginning, the time limits is something to be aware of in terms of how long have you got to submit the application to an employment tribunal. Let me just put this on edit view. And then I think it's worthwhile explaining, what do you think does the ACAS early conciliation do to the time limit? So we're not going to talk about early conciliation because we're going to cover that next term, but it does have an impact on the time limits, and I think it's worthwhile just being aware of that and writing that in. And then obviously, what are the implications if you go over that time limit requirement? And I think it's definitely worthwhile being aware of that. As a task 2, I thought it'd be useful to just have an idea about what they call the remedies. So what's the compensation available for someone wishing to claim ordinary unfair dismissal. And you can find that on the Labour Research chapter. And then the last bit is actually looking at one of the key cases on unfair dismissal on ice, called Ice from Frozen Foods case. But basically, the bit I'm after is that I wanted you to have a look at what does must not substitute. And there's a bit of an outline, a bit of a summary of the case on the following page for you to look at. So that's that activity. Let me minimize that. Let me go to the forum. So the forum is about the employment tribunal fees that were introduced, but it has to be said, Unison's legal victory in 2017 at the Supreme Court was monumental for many reasons, in particular as the government had to change and stop charging fees as soon as the decision got made, or the following day. And even though the decision is about 41 pages long, I just think it's useful to still have a look at it and just pick out, I think, why do you think it's important? And, why not identify some of the arguments that were used? I think that in itself is interesting to win the actual case. Interestingly, the Unison case that you'll be looking at has also had a mention in the Supreme Court case against the government with regards to prorogation. And I've also, if you wanted to do further reading, there's a House of Commons briefing on the employment tribunal fees. And then there's a journal called the Industrial Law Journal, which is read by employment lawyers, which gives us again a detailed account. Okay, well look, I look forward to seeing all of your work. Keep up to date with it, and I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye.